My leg.
Oh my god. Can we please have that be the, lead-in?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
fine.
sure, why not?
Yeah.
We'll leave that up to the editor. It's fine.
きっと約束だよいつかまた同じ笑顔で
Hello, everyone, and beyond. Welcome to yet another episode of the Annie Chatbox. This is episode 34, and I am your host today, Jonathan Joestar. And with me, I am joined by pretty much the the entire crew, not just pretty much, though.
I mean, I don't blame you for messing that part up. It's been a while since we've all been here.
Very true.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's Cassie.
It's me!
Cammy.
It's me, Cammy!
And Craig.
It's me, Mario.
I'm so happy that just became a thing.
That was magical. Magical.
That wasn't even scripted. That's
No.
fantastic.
John, you have to complete it.
And it's me.
We're making
anyway.
magic happen here on the Annie Chatbox podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for
Anyway.
listening to our podcast.
Oh god.
Okay. All right, copyright hammer is going to come down real fast.
Yep.
Charles Martinet is like eyeing YouTube at this very moment.
Yep, it's true.
Anyway, as per usual, you can follow us on Twitter with twitter.com @theanniechatbox. There's also, you can email us on anniechatmail@gmail.com. And you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and SoundCloud, along with YouTube, which you're probably finding us on here. Again, as per usual, we don't actually have a dedicated YouTube URL, but if you search for the Annie Chatbox, you will find us. And lastly, you can, as always, if you feel generous enough in your heart of hearts, to donate to us at patreon.com/AnnieChatbox. So yeah, on to the topic for today, and going back to watch older anime, is it still good, or is it just nostalgia goggles?
How much are those rose-tinted glasses talking?
So yeah, are there any
Thoughts
at
about
the
it?
start of this topic, actually, we were just talking about it, and now I've just completely blanked.
Well, I think the best way to bring it in is that the reason why John is hosting today is that today is a very big special, because it is John's host choice.
Yay.
And for John's host choice, I won't spoil what it was, but he did choose a 90s anime. I believe it was 90s at least, right?
Pretty sure it is.
And that being so, we all went back and watched it. And a lot of us have differing opinions that we'll get to when we get there. But it made us think about, wow, how much 90s anime, if we forced each other to go back and watch them, how much would we feel watching them, rewatching them, that these were really great, like when we were kids, or how much we realized, wow, this was so good growing up because it was good growing up.
1996, so yes, it is 90 anime.
There we go.
I like how you put that, basically. It was good growing up because it was good growing up.
Because we watched it as we were growing ourselves. And I think that
Yeah.
that's really important and why we latched on to a lot of shows about adolescent kids, as it were. Because that's one thing I realized when we were all talking is a good deal of the anime we watched growing up was because we were watching it on either Toonami or Adult Swim, most likely for most of us. And there was a lot of adolescent kiddos on those shows.
And also going back to watch something and thinking, this is really tropey and predictable, but how much of it is there actually following tropes, or how much is it actually setting those tropes is another question to think about when looking at an older series.
Depending on how far back you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Or maybe just like even if it's not the first one to have that trope, but to like mainstream that trope. I know for a fact that there have been far more early magical girl animes than Sailor Moon, but a lot of trends of some following magical girl animes were set by Sailor Moon after it aired. And for me, Sailor Moon is the first like nostalgic show that I think back to and that I watched. And I know because I've rewatched it and I've watched the newest adaptation, which covers the same source material, that the story doesn't necessarily hold up. There is a lot of nostalgia there. But it also set these tropes and set them to be memorable and well as compared to some other shows, magical girl shows that did not hold up. Cassie mentioned Wedding Peach earlier, which is very much a Sailor Moon clone. Peach. Yeah. It's and I enjoyed it too for the same reasons. Nostalgically, sometimes I'll still look back on it and I'm like, I know this was trash. It was very, very trash, but I have a lot of feelings for it. But I can point blank say that it did a lot of things carbon copy that Sailor Moon did in a very shallow and like flat way. And that's an example, I think, of being a bit unoriginal, having weak writing, and just basing yourself off of the tropes that have already been established.
And it was marketing itself to young girls, and by golly, did it market itself to young girls?
Oh, yeah.
What about marketing to young boys? Because I feel like that's a lot of the anime I grew up with. I mean, looking back now, a lot of the anime I grew up with was shonen. I didn't know it at the time. But how did you boys feel? Did you ever feel super inspired by a 90s anime just because it was marketed towards your demographic, even though you didn't know it then?
I mean, there's Pokemon, which is essentially targeted to kids of like all ages, and it's essentially marketing pitch, but to go on the more story driven, you got Digimon, which seasons 1 through 3 we could all safely say we all watched those, and we're probably like, it's debatable if the seasons 1 and 2 hold up, but season 3 for me, I went back and watched, and I think it still holds up.
I still think the original holds up too.
Shout outs to the director
I'd still
of
keep
season 3
watching that. I've been showing season 1 and 2 to my nephew, planning on getting to season 3 when we get to that point. And he's enjoying it just as much as I used to, and I still enjoy it just as much as I used to, so...
I think the only thing that doesn't necessarily hold up, as it were, about seasons 1 and 2, and this is something that I think we would see in a lot of 90s animation, is that some of the animation itself, while the art itself is good, the actual animations and the movements could be a bit janky. And that's especially true, and I can think of a few scenes from Digimon, especially when they're digivolving, that if that show was recreated today, and it has been, by the way, with the movies that are celebrating the 20th anniversary or whatever.
Try.
Do you feel old yet? The Digi-evolutions are a little bit more crisp now that they're being made with more fresh technology.
And it's also like corner cutting techniques that used to stretch the budget to the reused animation, the stills with the pans and all that kind of stuff. Like, stuff that some modern anime are still guilty of, but...
It's now more apparent.
It just might not be as evident to the naked eye.
Yeah.
Or maybe it really is, and it throws you off and you can't tell why. I've had that happen in a few newer anime. I feel like as fellow editors, that happens to us a lot. Sometimes I'll just be like, wait, something fell off there. And I'll go back through an anime frame by frame and be like, what on
I have in my editing on a couple of times fixed animation mistakes
Yes.
that have caught my eye, because it's like that. I can't just leave that as is. I need to fix this.
Something that my boyfriend and I like to do, and we just did while we were watching Yu Yu Hakusho, is with sometimes old anime, we'll say, ooh, okay, this aged past that point that, like, it just would not be fun to edit with. It would just be too much of a hassle because of just, like, the way it's made. And we feel that way personally about Yu Yu Hakusho. I also have a friend who did a Yu Yu Hakusho video, but it was a painstaking effort of love. We'll just put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
However, I would argue that Yu Yu Hakusho does hold up in the story arena, because I loved that show when I was young, but I've also gone back and rewatched it a couple of times, not all the way through because that would take my entire life, but maybe I will again at some point. But yeah, the story to me still gets me. All of the characters are just so great and wonderful and not one-dimensional. It's such a good show. I feel like that one holds up, but definitely animation-wise, I can agree. There are moments where it's like, God, I'm so happy I have no desire to edit with Yu Yu Hakusho.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Editing with Zeta Gundam was a chore, though I do feel Zeta Gundam did age well, especially after watching the original Gundam, or at least the 3-part OVA of that. Though, speaking of Gundam, as much as I still love the series, Gundam Wing is one of them that didn't really age well.
That's what I
It
hear.
is a product of its time, and unless you go back to watch it with the nostalgia goggles, it's probably going to be hard to get into it.
Huh.
In all honesty.
That's a bummer. I really love the opening to that one.
I feel like I keep hearing Craig pipe up in the background. Were you saying something there, bro?
I lost it. Go on.
Oh, sorry, man.
That's fine.
Talk over us if you have to. We need more Craig in here.
I have a question for all of you. So, Craig, I bet you can weigh in on this. So this started in the late 90s, but Inuyasha, think back to like seasons 1 and 2 of Inuyasha.
Oh
God.
What are you talking about? Inuyasha was a masterpiece.
Yeah, what a time. What a treasure of its time, but like of its time. Emphasis on that.
Fun fact about that show. I liked really watching that show because it's like, man, this guy's got a giant sword and he's a demon and he's going to kill a demon. Years later, after several demons. Years later, I discovered the manga and I didn't know what the terms shonen and shoujo were, and I discovered, man, it's a shoujo manga. I'm like, what's shoujo manga? It's catered towards girls. I'm like, and this is catered towards girls? I didn't get it. Huh. Okay, cool.
Well, it's because it's primarily a romance.
Yeah,
manga.
I get that. And I'm like, huh, okay, yeah, good on him.
That show just, I don't know, like everything about it was just such a product of its time, like in the storyline and, you know, your love triangle and the dramatically shouting each other's names that we...
Love triangle? You mean the love pentagon?
Was it a pentagon? Oh, that's true. Yeah, if you include Koga and all that.
Because you had...
That's very true.
Yep, you had Koga, and then you had Kagome's, like, real-life friend who had a thing for her.
Oh my god,
the high school boy.
Hojo!
I don't remember what his name was.
Hojo!
What?
Hojo.
Yep, so you had him, and, like, then I believe that there was, like, Tojo's version of himself in the feudal era.
There was.
Who existed and had a thing for Kagome. Dude, that thing was a love kite.
God.
I don't even know if that's a pentagon anymore.
Well, and that's still such a trope again too. There, like it was just, I don't know, but I still love that one a lot. But again, if I'm looking at it purely from a critical perspective, it's a lot of nostalgia. A lot.
Did anybody watch the final season that they aired like several million years later?
No, I started it but never finished it.
Final act.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tried, but then I realized that in the dub, the original voice actress of Kagome wasn't on for Final Act, and they hired a new voice actress, and I was like, again, this nostalgia goggles. I was like, I can't buy it if I don't have Kagome's original dub voice, so I couldn't watch it.
Oddly enough, they had, if I recall, I think they had everyone else from the Ocean dub, but they did not get her, and that was the only odd thing that I
maybe they couldn't.
Yeah, that's possible.
Because they were obviously trying to get the cast back together, so maybe she just had other obligations or wasn't feeling it, or...
Yeah, I mean, it had been a long time.
Who knows?
Speaking of getting the cast back together, going back to Digimon, I believe they tried to get all the original cast back for dubbing the new movies of that.
I think they did. I don't know if they got everyone, though. We would have to look, but I'm pretty sure they didn't get everyone.
I know that the moment the movies got announced, the original voice actor for Tai, even though he kind of doesn't do voice acting anymore, he outright said, if they want me back for that, I'm 110% up for that. So
that's pretty cool.
Speaking of pioneering tropes, I know that one thing that Cammie mentioned before we started the podcast was that Tenchi Muyo isn't necessarily an anime that has aged well, but as far back as I can remember, Love Hina and Tenchi Muyo, even though I never saw Tenchi Muyo, are the only harems that I can think of off the top of my head. And I feel like Love Hina definitely didn't age very well anime-wise. I need to go back and read the manga, but the anime was not very good to begin with. But I loved it back then. Yeah. But Tenchi, I never watched. So it's very interesting to hear people's perspectives on that one. Because I know that it kind of, not necessarily pioneered the harem genre, but it was definitely one of the big hitters.
It was a big harem. And the funny thing, at least when I watched it, that I recall is that, again, I think it was a really weird choice to market it towards, like, kids. I guess I can see it because, like, teenage boys would get into it because it's, like, fan servicey and harem. But me...
Well, Craig can speak to that one.
Oh, Craig, yeah. What about your input on Tenchi Muyo?
You were a teenage boy watching Tenchi, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. And my input was, I didn't even know what a harem was, but hey, the guy had a lightsaber and he went into space, which was pretty cool, so... That's what.
So wait. Did the lightsaber and fighting more appeal to you, or did the harem of girls who wanted him appeal to you as well?
No, the lightsaber and the fighting did.
No, for real. I get you on that, though.
Craig is a man of simple tastes.
Listen,
sounds about right though.
Back then, the harem is just kind of comedy. I was just like, I laughed at it, but I didn't understand. It's just like, oh, the tropes are being shown here. I don't know what a trope is, but sure, whatever. I mean, power-up swords, blasts, lasers, cool.
I think that's part of why it doesn't hold up for me, is because kind of like you, when I was a kid, I didn't watch it with the intent or consciousness that it was a harem. You know?
Yeah.
I didn't see it quite as clearly for what it was, and now I would watch it and I'd clue in 2 seconds. Okay, this is a tropey harem thing, so it's just gotten old and I don't enjoy it. When I was a kid, I was like, ooh, pretty girls, and they're like intergalactic princesses, and hey, we're in space, and there's fighting. So yeah, I get you there.
There's a space pirate, there's a space princess, there's space cops. All these ladies are badass, but I mean...
Space.
You wanna go to space?
Gotta go to space.
Oh my god.
Space.
Actually, speaking of that, I think something else that can change that we didn't have access to necessarily as kids is... I loved the Love Hina anime, and therefore I bought the entire manga series. And I loved the manga. And then when I went back to rewatch the anime, I realized how much they changed from the original source.
Yep.
And I realized really how shallow the anime was in comparison. And that's another thing that kind of killed the show for me. In retrospect, as I got older. So
that's a really good point.
Yeah, and I feel like there were a lot of shows that may have kind of went off the deep end when it came to the source material. And I mean, an adaptation is an adaptation, so it should stand alone. But I think that in comparison, sometimes it can change how you view something, and it kind of breaks those nostalgia goggles underneath its beautifully footed foot. I don't know. They're wearing boots. They're wearing combat boots.
Yes.
Smash them.
Oh my god.
So while we've been discussing, the light bulb above my head finally popped off. What I was going to say earlier, pedaling back a little bit, I was going to say Yu Yu Hakusho action best in season 2, the tournament arc.
Dude, I love the fucking tournament arc.
Best writing, Chapter Black, season 3.
I don't know if I agree.
Really?
I actually think that the writing was better at the beginning.
Interesting. See, we can both agree. Season 4, the writing
it
in
is
good. The writing at the end at season 4 was the weakest, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. I thought we were still talking about the dark thing, but whatever. But
also, correction, just a clarification. I was curious. I looked up the Digimon Tri movies, and the only returning voice actor from the original series is in fact Joshua Seth. Everyone else is new or they recasted the characters.
Aw.
There you go.
If I'm seeing
but
this
I mean
right.
that happens, a show gets old. I mean, Digimon aired 20 years ago.
Wait, no, I take that back.
So,
Izzy is still Mona Marshall. Sorry about that.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, regardless, they weren't able to get the whole cast back, and that's kind of
yeah.
And that's to be expected, though. Like, people get old, people change, people die, people get illnesses. Some people don't want to voice act anymore. Like, I think that happens with any career. It's
the same with Dragon Ball Z and the redub of Kai too. They had to recast half the people in that, except for Chris Abbott and Sean Schemmel. The champs.
Well, haven't there been like 20 people that have voiced Goku over the years?
Yeah.
In the English dub.
Damn.
Yeah, the Funimation dub, the Ocean dub in Canada, that sort of thing, so.
Yeah, it has been nearly 20, but it's definitely traded hands a lot.
If anything...
Actually, Cammy, weren't there multiple Sailor Moon dubs as well?
There were 4 Sailor Moon voice actors, if I remember correctly, or maybe 3.
I remember one being freakishly British. That's all I remember.
Yes. There were...
Was that
was that
the Deke dub?
So there was, like, Cloverway, Deke, and then, like, Deke again. I'm not sure about how all the studios go, but, like, the one thing that was true is you broke it up into seasons. So the original voice for Sailor Moon was in the original Sailor Moon Season 1, and then in Sailor Moon Season R, and all 3 of the movies for some reason, which span across multiple seasons, it's this other voice actress. And then there's a 3rd voice actress who voices for Sailor Moon S and Sailor Moon Super S, which is the last season that got dubbed. So yeah, it's kind of nice because, like, if you're not really paying attention to how completely different they sound, you could be like, oh, her voice is, aging as, like, the seasons go. But the quality of the voice acting really does some flubbing around, so you can really tell.
Just as a quick question, I don't know if you have an impression of it, but what do you think of the Viz Media redub of the entirety of it?
It's funny. It's very, very good quality, but again, nostalgia goggles on. Some of the memories of the dub that I love so much were the quirky and cheesiness of the 90s one. So the original one is like serviceable, but it's kind of dull. Full transparency. Yeah. They all do a good job. They all do a really, really solid job. But, and it's nice that they give tribute to the original source material again. Like they're not cousins. They're straight up lovers. Like that stuff is really cool. But the bad, terrible old dub will always have a special place in my heart.
And I think that like even when dubs are good, if you watched a dub first, sometimes like you just can't, like it doesn't matter how good the Japanese dub is.
Yeah,
you just and I had that actually. Stepping away from the 90s for a second, Full Metal Alchemist used to be my favorite anime ever. Period. And I loved it. And then I went and watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood within the last year or two. And because I was like, hello, Cassie, you pioneer yourself as a Full Metal Alchemist fan, but you've never seen Brotherhood? Come on now. So I went and watched it, and I tried to watch it in Japanese first because I tend to, at this point in time in my life, prefer Japanese dubs. Mm-hmm. But I only got through episode 1 before I switched back to the dub.
I feel you.
And that's just how I felt. And I think that was kind of like how me and John are, like for a comparison to what we're going to be reviewing today. I tried to go into the dub and just couldn't do it. But because I didn't grow up watching it, I feel like I was able to just, jump right into the Japanese.
Yeah.
But almost everybody I know who's watched the show has basically said that they watched it in English first.
Mm.
And so that's what they love.
Yeah.
So that's what's interesting. Including people who I know who purposely go out of their way to watch Japanese subs now. The particular show we're talking about today, totally not trying to make a segue, by the way. The show we're talking about today, almost all of them watched in dub first.
Yeah, I've heard that.
There's some series that I can go back and forth between the dub and subs for various reasons.
Yep.
But like going back to Gundam Wing, I cannot watch that subbed. I did try to go back and watch it subbed, and I can't. I just can't get into the Japanese voices, because that one was my first Gundam series. It was my first giant robot series, if I remember correctly, ignoring Transformers.
Mm.
The only giant robot series that came before it, in my mind, is Transformers.
I can't go back and watch Dragon Ball in Japanese or Yu Yu in Japanese, despite the voice actors being prolific. I love these English voice actors. I can't. Granny Goku, I'm sorry, Sean Schimmel beats you.
And I can understand that, actually.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, there are some times where it's the other way around. Like, for example, just to throw one out there, just to say that this isn't always the case. Panty and Stocking with Garter Belt, for example.
For
I watched
sure.
that when it was airing. And I watched it in Japanese, obviously. Then I went and got the English dub / Japanese dub, obviously, when I bought the show. And I watched it in English. And I actually prefer the English dub better.
Interesting. That's really cool.
Because it's so much raunchier in English.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I think I could
They
say...
ran with it.
I could say the same thing. I watched some of it as it was dubbed and some of it as it was airing pre-dub in Japanese. I'm kind of the same way with Italia, where I vastly preferred the dub, just mainly because context-wise...
The accents.
Yeah, the
Can't
accents.
have corn in his
sold it.
pasta.
Yes, it's pasta! Well, and he says pasta in both languages, but, like, you got these over-the-top accents and fake French laughing, and it just makes it so much more fun. I don't know. I love the Italian dub.
It's okay if we're racist and if it is comedy.
Exactly.
A more recent series that I found I can watch either sub or dubbed, and this is also because I'm watching it again with my nephew. Currently airing series at that, which is awesome that the dub and sub are coming out at the same time. My Hero Academia, I'm really enjoying both the dub and sub of that.
Yep.
But we're not talking about dub versus sub, we're talking about old anime and
I think that goes with old anime.
Yeah.
Because we grew up with the dubs, so...
Yeah.
So, speaking of old anime, I think it's about time I actually finally find out if this stone that I kicked in frustration at my fellow host actually did bounce back as a diamond or not. As we talk about Kido Senkan Nadeshiko, aka Martian Successor Nadeshiko.
Woo!
My legs! My legs!
Oh my god. Can we please have that be the, like, lead-in?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
fine.
sure, why not?
Yeah.
We'll
Leave that up to the editor. It's fine.
Anyway. Moving on.
Anyway, the studio behind this series is Zebek, who have done other shows like Breakblade, To Loveru, and some more recent ones, Keijo, and Clockwork Planet. So they're still going.
So they make porn.
They've done...
That pause was fantastic.
Listen.
I was
Porn
doing...
and some others.
Listen,
I said in some others.
They have excellent taste in acquisitions of anime properties.
Can I lick your tail inappropriately?
Is it bad that the first series I was about to interject was, hey, they also did Love Hina, and it was like, that's not proving any points on my...
No scores.
They're not perverted. Look at this other perverted show.
Yeah, they have
Moving on.
a lot of harem shows. Anyway, the synopsis goes, Akita doesn't want to fight. Despite a childhood spent on the anime Gekiganga 3, a mecha show, he'd rather cook than pilot a mecha. Fate intervenes when his home on Mars is destroyed and he is transported instantly to Earth. Mysteriously. He has questions no one can answer fully, but follows a girl from a chance meeting in hopes to discover any. The girl, Eureka, is captain of the private battleship Nadeshiko, and in order to follow her, he enlists as their cook. Possessing the nanite implants that allow to control mechs, he's a handy backup pilot for the mechas of the Nadeshiko. He joins a crew bent on avenging Mars that seem to be composed of only misfits, otakus, and ditzes. However, in reality, they are hand-picked experts. They take their own private world back to Mars to face the harsh reality that life may not always be like a giant mecha series.
Meta.
It's so meta. Because, quite a number of the cast are either anime fans or in some way involved with anime, with one of the communications officer being a voice actress.
Yeah.
Before she gets enlisted in the Nadeshiko.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're not talking about characters yet. We're talking about the story.
Let me think. I honestly thought that the first episode was a really, really strong first episode for an anime when I watched it. I just loved that they were really, like, punchy and just introducing all of this colorful cast of characters while, like, everyone's getting together to gather to do this one big mission. It honestly had me really interested. I think there's something I really like about seeing a colorful cast of characters and being like, oh, I want to know more about them. Like, I can't wait to see how they're going to impact the rest of the story. And the show to me really just like fired off with a bang. I liked the first episode a whole lot.
I like how you got a good sense of each of the characters as they were introduced, at least to an extent.
I will say I was a bit confused on Akito's past that is introduced. You know, there was a little bit of like time jumping around. And that was a bit confusing. His whole PTSD thing was something that was a little bit hard for me to grasp. Like, eventually I got it. I was like, okay, it's PTSD, and I don't think that's a spoiler because, again, first episode sort of story info.
Yeah.
It's not a spoiler, especially because it is kind of like Whiplash, and that is the problem I actually had with the story overall. And I think that me and you actually, Cammie, talked about this a little bit when we talked about Horomusiko.
Yes,
where you would be in one place and then you'd be in another, and the problem is that, and this is also not a spoiler because, again, first episode, and you better prepare yourself. The beginning of the show has him on Mars, and then he's on Earth, and they decide not to explain that to you until the end of the show.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Part of that is that Akito himself doesn't know how it happened.
But it wasn't presented well, is the point I'm making. Yeah. It's very whiplashy, and honestly, when they actually do explain it later on in the show, one of the problems I had with the show in general is how random plot elements are thrown in, because why not? Because that's when they start getting into jumping and stuff and a whole bunch of science techie stuff that wasn't necessary in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, if your first impression of the show is, oh, we're in Mars, oh, we're on Earth, oh, now he's a cook, oh, now he's on a ship, like, it's just so much stuff at once.
Yeah, I do think that overall the pace of the way they told the story and would cut from scene to scene was often really punchy, where it was just like very sudden. here is this, and I don't even necessarily just mean story-wise, but also tonally. And I think, again, like, the show messes around and you clearly get the establishment, and some people really love it for this reason, I think. That it teeters between being really serious and dark and gritty, and then the comedy and parody side, which I do think is a novelty, but sometimes it was a little bit it made it a little bit hard to follow for me, or it felt disjointed.
Yeah. For example, for a good example of this in the story, one of the moments I actually really started getting invested is when Yorika, as the captain of the ship, has to make a very difficult decision. Mm-hmm. And I actually was paying attention at that moment, because I was like, wait, whoa, you're going to make a life or death situation right here that could affect hundreds of people. And she makes that decision. And she's traumatized by that decision. But oh wait, we're over it now and we're making a TV show because lol, this is funny again. Like, that to me was mildly in poor taste, but also gave me emotional whiplash. And and I did not like that tonal shift being so quick.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot throughout the show. That's just one for me that was very pinnacle and actually made me a little annoyed. I don't know if you're talking about the same thing, Cammie, but...
No, I mean, I think the same thing. Like we just said, it's kind of emotional tone would also be very jarring. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I get that, but that is kind of like, oh, look, here's really harsh and sad moment, and then suddenly happy-go-lucky again, and it's like, okay.
I'm over it, somehow.
Well, and some of that, where it was interesting... but again, I also was just kind of like, this feels really disjointed. Again, with Akito's PTSD, sometimes it would really manifest very suddenly. Like, he found out something about another member of the ship related to his own trauma, and, like, he starts out chill, and then all of a sudden, he's, like, strangling this guy, and then, like, they tie him down, and then a couple scenes later, they're like, oh, hey, Akito, yeah, you're fine, right? Like, we're good. Or, like, yeah, and I mean, and that almost, like, is probably poignant because it's a mark, I think, of how someone can really be impacted by going through trauma. So I'm kind of on the fence about, I guess, that scene in general, but that was something I definitely noticed too. And then it kind of went away halfway through the show, and
then it came back.
Yeah, and then his character, I never really knew how to read him. I was like, are you going to be chill like MC Akito today, or are you going to be like, I'm really, really traumatized Akito today? I'm just not sure.
There was one point where he called himself out and he was like, I thought I was over this, and now it's back.
Yeah.
But
that's cool.
It was odd that I was like, okay, you've been absolutely fine all this time, and then suddenly you're having a freak out again.
Or I guess also that everyone else didn't really... they didn't seem worried about it. Like, I felt more concerned about it than some of the characters did.
Yeah, it's like, maybe you should be a little worried about your pilot's mental state if he's going to be one of the main people trying to defend your ship. Though that in and of itself brings up questions for me. It's like, why is Yorika the captain of this ship?
Just
why?
Cause. Just cause.
And also, and like, they very briefly, like later on, they mentioned she went to like some sort of top school or something, but that's the most we get, and it's like later in the series. Also, I don't know how being a voice actress makes you perfect for communications. And I don't, like, the only person on that ship who I felt like was qualified to be there, and even then he's questionable, is the mechanic guy. Because we're introduced to him building stuff. I knew
I was going to mention the mechanic.
Yeah, because and honestly, I loved that character because everything he did makes sense. Like, almost, like, even when he was being weird, like, everything he did made sense. And for him to be on the Nadeshiko, being their main mechanic, when I was first introduced to him, I'm like, okay, I see your qualifications. You're kind of crazy, but that's the kind of show that everybody else is like, what are your qualifications exactly?
I don't know if I could...
Oh, I guess we're not going to explain this? Okay, cool.
I don't know if I could give out full qualifications for any reason, but I guess I felt like Ruri belonged there somehow, even though she's like a very, very smart young girl. But that, I think for that, I was just kind of like, yeah, you're anime fun sort of thing, but she kept to herself and she was really connected to the computer, so I guess like that one too I understood. But yeah,
they gave her a backstory section too, which honestly I think Rudy is the only one.
Yep, she's the only character
that
got
any kind
out.
of form. Yeah, and it's just like, okay, maybe we should give that same treatment to, I don't know, the main characters, because other than Akito, because Akito did technically have a backstory, but Yorika, we don't know why she's qualified to be a captain, and from everything I've seen of her, she's not qualified to be a captain.
Yeah, I would say
maybe that's the joke, but
yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess the wavering motivations is like a big center around her character, but yeah, the fact again that nobody really questions it, and this is a big old war, like an intergalactic war thing, and their lives are at risk. It's very funny. Let me think about it though. I forgot.
I think part of the thing is that they are not actually they're not actually part of the military. They are private organizations, so they kind of had to get people from wherever they could.
Yeah, but they made it sound like they were the best in their field.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how they set it up.
Although it's funny because I think, and take this with a grain of salt, but I think I saw a parody where they poked fun at that. They're just like, Mr. Prospector, we're running on a budget. Go find people. Okay, I'm gonna go here and here. Oh man, we can have a cook that can make a PB&J sandwich. You're hired.
Yeah, and also, like, when they went around getting the people, like, they didn't just wander around the street going, hey, anybody here know how to pilot a mech? Hey, anybody here know how to use communicate? They went specifically to specific people, and they knew where they were. Like, the girl who's a voice actress, Megumi, I think her name was. Yep. Like, she was in the middle of recording when they walked in there, so it wasn't like they didn't know who she was ahead of time. They went there for a reason. So they handpicked these people for some reason. And maybe I'm just overanalyzing it, but that kind of rubbed me the wrong way too. Like, why are these people qualified to fight in in a civilian pilot? Because that's one thing that they liked, was that it was a private civilian warship. But why were they the ones qualified? Oh, I guess we're never going to address this. Okay.
Yeah. I ended up enjoying the characters' like banter as a motley crew, but yeah, just from a like, where is this coming from? Yeah, it was definitely a little bit head scratching. But I guess to get back on that again too, I also mentioned to John during the first like 4 episodes or so that there were aspects of this show in the early episodes with the big cast that reminded me of why I love Shirobako a lot, like with just having a group of eccentrics and like seeing how they all get together. And there were some funny parallels, like a voice actress and then like the guy being a super otaku and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed that aspect. Again, story-wise, with being as vague as possible, there's a lot of shifts of who all is on that ship, and eventually, though, it just got kind of dissonant because I was like, I don't know if you're all, like, I didn't feel like everybody was on the same side or everybody trusted each other, or, like, one second they wouldn't, and then they were, and I was like, all of you guys are just kind of running around like chickens with your heads cut off.
Yeah, that's how I felt towards the back half of the show.
The back half,
where I definitely was like, I do not know what's going on, and who are you again? What?
Where is your allegiance? Like, yeah.
I think that also one point I felt kind of, and this may not have been intentional, but I felt like they were almost insulting the viewer because there was a sudden reveal towards the end of villainous intent, or like suddenly like, oh, ho, ho, I also have access to the master key. And it's like, who could have saw this coming? And literally everybody else did, but I as a viewer didn't. And it was the one moment where I was almost going to applaud the show for like doing something I didn't see coming, even if it was kind of generic. But then it was like, oh, we all knew that. Why did you all know that?
Yeah.
Like that, I felt mildly insulted as a viewer. But I think that tying into that, I think that one of my main issues with Nadesico, and a lot of people have told me, who I've talked to about this show, Cassie, you need to not take it so seriously. Like, the show is better if you just don't think about it. And you know what? That's my main problem with Nadesico. If it was a comedy from beginning to end, I probably would have enjoyed it 1,000,000 times more. But I fire back at them, well, touche to Nadesico, because it also tried to be super duper story eccentric towards the end of the show and in the middle of the show, and then jerks back into comedy. Like, you can't tell me not to evaluate that. I didn't like the fact that it was a comedy 1 minute, and then it tried to be a drama the next, and then it tried to be a comedy again, and then it tried to be a space opera, and then it tried to be a comedy, then it tried to be dramatic. Like, you can't, you gotta be one or the other, please.
Yeah, I honestly think I probably, because I enjoyed the comedy segments a lot more, I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more as a comedy, because to me that's getting out what I think the show did probably the strongest.
I agree.
What else was it that I was going to say? Yeah, but at the same time, and John, you can probably weigh in on this, if I was watching this as a kid and I was younger, nostalgia goggles, like, I probably would have just been able to kind of tune out the story dissonance, kind of in the same way that I guess we mentioned, like, Tenchi Muyo earlier, where I wasn't like, this is a harem show, I'm just looking at, like, pretty things. And were there aspects of it that you really enjoyed when you first watched it, John? Or did you also really enjoy, like, the story as a whole? Do you have some input maybe on, like, what it was for you experiencing watching it the first time when you were younger?
Or how that changed as you got older, because you rewatched through this too.
What's the hook?
Yeah, I rewatched it. I also rewatched it in the sub this time. But
nice.
Even though I love the dub, I was like, you know what, since I am rewatching it, I'll get a fresh new take on it. I will admit there's a lot of stuff that I know I missed when I was watching it before, because somehow I completely missed the point that Cassie brought up. It was like the whole I have the master key, and it was like, did I skip this episode? I don't remember this at all. But yeah, I guess part of it is nostalgia goggles, because I still really enjoyed everything. But even so, it's like, yeah, now that you mention it, that is a bit of an issue with it. It does whiplash a bit with going back and forth. So I'm not giving a clear answer on this at all.
I feel like there's one thing that we can agree on as a cast, maybe, and that's that the first half of the show is significantly better than the second, especially the first couple of episodes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the second, agree. The first three.
Yeah.
Speaking of the start series, so remember when me and Cammy were talking about the 90s nostalgia episode before, like watching anime as a 90s kid back in the day and the struggles of it. And I mentioned that there was a series where I bought Volume 1 on VHS, which had 3 episodes, and then Volume 2 on DVD, which was 4 episodes per volume. That was Martian Successor Nadesico. So, my first time watching the first start of the episode, I didn't see episode 4. I suddenly went from episode 3 to episode 5. So, that was very jarring.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine.
And as a result, I actually now, through a various number of happenstances, effectively have 3 copies of Volume 1 and 2 copies of Volume 2, because I bought the entire series in one batch when I found it.
That's dedication, honestly, because I know that I originally watched the first, I think, 5 episodes with our friend Pete, and he just had the 1 DVD collection. So that's a testament to the 90s and also how much you love this show, so that's pretty great.
It's coming out on Blu-ray at some point.
I was gonna say, yeah, I think I heard about that.
Out on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Should we transition to characters, even though I feel like we already started talking about them?
Yeah, we're already getting into it.
Yeah, we kind of already did start talking about characters.
Let me think. I feel like for most of the cast, there were... Okay, I guess of, like, our main ship crewmates that stay, there were aspects about them that I enjoyed, but on a whole, I enjoyed parts of them, but they also frustrated me. I guess that's mainly part of it for most of them.
I'll say my piece about the cast, and it kind of ties into my thoughts about the plot, because I didn't really speak
You didn't
my mind.
talk much.
Go, Craig,
No.
go.
Because you guys pretty much covered the bases. Why this show, I believe, is so reverent and why people love it so much is in the cast. It's not so much the plot, but it's the characters that drive the show. I agree with Cammy that some of the characters have facets that are likable. They're bubbly, they're fun, they're like the everyday man trying to essentially miracle up a way to get victory. I would compare this to the Avengers, but they aren't clearly the Avengers. So, I mean, for every man, who's a shitty character in this show? For every fucking no, I wouldn't say Megumi's a terrible character, but for every Megumi, you have a Ruri. So.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I agree with, I think where you're going with this, because I am not, okay, how am I going to put this? I'm somebody who believes that a story is paramount, but there are times where a character or a set of characters can carry a show, even if there isn't necessarily a very clearly written story or not the best story.
Yeah.
And that happens in anime even today. I know that, for example, Re:Zero, I have no idea what that show is about.
Yep.
But it's one of the most
popular.
Yeah, but it's one of the most popular shows. And why? Because everybody loves Rem. Everybody loves Subaru. Everybody loves that cast of characters.
I love Amelia.
I didn't even realize I was setting you up for that.
No.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. And I think that could be the case here with Nadeshiko. And I know that, for example, when I was talking to my friend Pete, his response was, when I was whining about the story off the air, he's like, well, I mean, when I watched it, I just loved how wacky the characters were in their interactions. And it's like, you know what? I can't even disagree there.
Yeah.
They're like this weird dysfunctional family, from what I understand. And while the plot had the weirdest back and forth tug of war between, are we a comedy, an episodic comedy with a backdrop of, the war is a thing, but we're here on the Nadeshiko, a powerful ship that can kick ass and take names, and we're just survive. And then one episode later, it'll be like doom and gloom and PTSD and war. What is it good for? I mean, the characters.
Financial stability between countries?
Yep, exactly. At the end of the day, you take the characters, the core cast, the dysfunctional family, as it were, is the strong point.
But again, I'm with Cammy on this one, that while there were characters that I liked, almost every single one of them frustrated me too. And not in a good frustration way, not in a you're growing as a character frustration. It was,
why are you there?
Why are you in this location at this time? Why are you acting that way? Why are you acting so out of character at this one point in time, but not another? It just...
Why does everyone want Akito's dick?
Yeah.
That's a thing, too, that kind of started to irritate me towards the end. Why did even characters that it made no sense.
Yeah.
They still wanted the D. It was weird.
Yeah.
Some of that, I think, again, is just, an issue with, 90s harem, because I know that Nadeshiko is not the only case with this. Oh my god, but I just got I think specifically with Megumi and Yurika, I was like, this guy has repeatedly been really shitty to you. I was mad. I was why do you still like him? He's a fuckhead. Excuse my language.
Yeah, he was super mean to both of them.
Yeah,
and to be fair, they were unreasonably obsessed with him, and that's another thing that bothered me.
Yeah.
Especially with, and I mean, I guess we're getting kind of mildly into spoilers, but especially with one of those two, it seemed just so out of character, especially with how she was introduced and why she initially started to like him in the first place. I felt was super genuine.
Yeah.
And then she just turned into a Yurika clone, only a bitchier.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it was frustrating.
Oh, now I know who you're talking about.
Watching it again, I was like, why are these? Why? I get the initial start of it, but then why didn't you just move on earlier? Why didn't you just go okay, no, this isn't working. Just
You need
Sorry,
you don't need no man. You are your own woman. You are strong.
And I think that the worst part of it, too, is it isn't done to the point where I was like, well, this is funny, at least. Because it wasn't.
Well, and some of it just, some of their reasons, like, as we get into the more, like, minute characters that also then starts, like, Akito, the reasons just get thinner and thinner. Like, we had enough build-up with, like, Yurika and the other, like, main one. But then there's, like, another character that all of a sudden calls out his name, and then they're teasing, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's just kind of a one-off. Wait, when did this happen, and, like, why did this happen? And then characters just looked at him for the first time, and they're like, oh, I love your face. I'm also in love with you. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, give it some build-up, or, like, meaning.
It gets to the point of ridiculousness, and to be fair, Nadesico is all about being ridiculous,
True.
But I jumped the fun boat right around. Actually, I jumped the fun boat much earlier, but still, like, if you're going to do something that outrageous, at least make it mildly funny, because even with, like, other jokes that I didn't necessarily find funny, at least I could see why other people would. I look at, like, this lovely, like, bullshit, and I'm like, who is enjoying this?
It's weird, though, right? Because go back and would you be able to... fuck. Harems as a whole, Nisekoi, Love Hina, Tenchi Muyo, would you be able to stand those nowadays, knowing that one of them's gonna win out in the end?
But here's the thing. I went in to Nisekoi knowing it was a harem. For better or for worse, that's what I went into it knowing. Yeah. I went into Love Hina as a kid, and later on, knowing it was a harem.
Okay, so the standard is set.
With Nadesico... I'm going to be frank, I didn't look at what the genre of the show was. I just went back into it.
Yep.
And the show doesn't turn into a love triangle / harem until technically around the second half of the show.
Yeah, fair point.
It's not something we're presented with from the beginning.
Yeah.
Another thing, to be fair, again, it just depends. Something that I really like with shows where you have such a big, diverse cast of characters, I always want a bunch of, like, little interspersed relationships among the big cast.
Cliques.
Yeah, in School Rumble, there's a bunch of different, like, love lines and stuff, just for example, big cast. And so then I guess even more, I was like, even more in this show, I was like, there's potential because we have a lot of characters, but it, for the most part, did not, everybody went to Akito. Let me just say, shout outs, my boy June was robbed. I love him, and he deserves much better than he got.
Oh, it's true. Yeah. Poor June.
Yeah, June was robbed.
I think the closest we got to, like, a personal relationship outside of, like, everybody wanting Akito's D or make fun of it was literally Ruri and her computer. Like, that is literally the only bro ship I saw.
Yep.
That was, outside of a romantic one, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like there were some bro-y moments, like especially with like Guy and Akito. But I didn't see like little cliques of characters outside, I guess, the three female pilots.
I did like the 3 female pilots dynamic.
But even that, like, always felt like an afterthought to me.
Yeah, they were definitely said, yo, you're the backups to Akito, as he's the front man. He's the point man in the Estebalis mechs.
I mean, they had some romantic relationships on the side as well that they tried to explore. And while I appreciated them, I also felt that they were not handled best.
No, they weren't handled very well or fleshed out.
One of them came out of nowhere and then ended.
And they got dropped for something else, yes.
Yeah.
Even though I liked the alternative more.
Thinking back, it's like, okay, was it that kind of caused it to end? Because she keeps bringing it up.
Yeah.
But, like, it sounded like they were trying to work through it at first. When did it end? You're now just with this other guy?
I'll be honest, though. I really felt for the alternative by the end, personally.
I love how we're being dancing around to all of these, like, things that happen.
There was a moment later on, I'm not going to say it, but me just saying the words will probably make everybody in here go, oh. There was one moment later on in the show that I was like, "Aw," and that was when there's a character that goes up to another character and is like, "I will be your groom."
Yeah. Oh, geez.
Oh, yes.
And I loved that.
Aww.
I loved that moment, and I didn't see it coming, and that's what made it refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I feel like the relationship between those two characters was actually believable.
Yeah, because
And
it was
how
given
they-
time and
I did
execution.
like that bit.
Yeah,
Which most the rest of the cast wasn't. Let's just
I got nothing. I
be frank.
don't know who you're talking about.
We can talk about it in the
Off-pod.
spoiler room.
Yeah,
Okay.
spoiler room. Oh my god. Okay, yeah. All right.
But
We should probably get to production
yeah.
eventually, unless
Art-
somebody else has
art,
something
music.
characters-wise to talk about. Honestly, I think for a 90s show, this holds up really well, animation-wise.
It holds up well. However, I will say some of the character models looked a little wonky.
I would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
Yep.
say the mech designs are legit, but I would rather watch Gaidai Goji because I feel as though that has better character models and more, like, kudos to them for making
What?
an anime within an anime.
I think he means
You
Geki
mean
Gengar.
Geki Gengar.
Geki
Geki-
Gengar.
Sorry, Gaidai.
Gaidai Doji is
My bad.
The other
character.
guy, the other character,
Yep.
pilot,
Yep.
that
And I-
loves Geki Gengar.
Yep, and I was actually going to
Geki
tie
Gengar
that
3.
in and be like, you know what, for a 90s anime, it wasn't bad, but I feel like I enjoyed watching the Geki Gengar episodes within the show more than I did watching the animation of the main show.
It was weird.
Which is weird.
Yeah, it's really weird. And
Oh,
Geki Gengar is styled as like an 80s or a 90s, or not a 90s, like a 70s mecha.
Yeah.
And it's like super robot, and it's really cool for that.
the thing is that series is supposed to be 100 years old in the
Oh, nice.
timeline that Nadesico is supposed to be set in.
But it looks better than Nadesco does. I'm sorry, but it does. Like just how things move and because I don't think Nadesco by any means is badly animated.
No.
At all. But like to have a show that's supposed to be 100 years old and have it outdo you is a little sad.
Mm.
Is that the joke? Is that the joke?
Maybe, Cass, it's like watching anime as of now, like Your Name or Silent Voice, and you're like, damn, I wish these vistas look so much better in
Are we
real
all
life.
secretly anime? Watching anime? Are you in anime?
Fuck, you found out!
Maybe
Yeah,
life is an
I-
anime.
I think that the Geki Gengar episodes and moments were actually the best part of the animation of the show.
Let's
Speaking
go
of, what did you
action.
think about the what's it called? The Flash, the
Oh.
recap episode, the mid-series recap episode. Being
Did anybody else
watched
watch it?
Nope,
by
I skipped it.
I
I regret it.
because
I honestly regret it now because
Geki Gengar.
Maybe we can go back and watch it because I knew what it was going to be, but I'm going to be blatantly honest. Me and Craig watched this together and we were just trying to get through it.
I was
So we
drinking.
were like,
enough.
recap episode is a recap episode. But I have heard that it is like
entertaining.
it is entertaining and is one of the more entertaining recap episodes in anime, specifically because they switch and do something pretty interesting with the Geki Gengar cast and
it's
without ruining
it's
it for
the
anyone.
Geki King.
But
yeah, I'll say it.
we can talk about it in the spoiler section if you really want to. But yeah, I've heard that yeah. But Cammie, you were saying something about the character models.
Oh, that I just agree. The character models were sometimes wonky. There were a lot of shots of like kind of
Faces.
it wasn't side profile, but like they'd be angled and their eyes were just fucked. And I was like,
Their eyes
one
were
is
just staring
huge
into your
and one is
soul.
tiny. And to be fair, it's not just Nadesco because I noticed it in Yu Yu Hakusho too. But like it was something that I noticed a lot while I was watching it. Also, the girl with brown hair, her lips would go from like reasonably sized to like fucking huge, and I was like, ugh.
Oh, dude, her character model specifically
Yeah.
freaked me out. And I know me and Craig were talking about it when we were watching. I was like, what is wrong with her face?
Yeah, it just changed a lot. I don't know.
Dr.
But guys-
Dr. Versange had a weird face too, where it's always like just a small mouth and small
Her
eyes.
features,
Was she the blonde
facial
one? Yes,
features
I
are
know
so
what you
tiny
mean.
for her face.
Yes. Oh, I know what you mean. Okay. Yes.
But looking at it through the lens of this is a 90s anime.
No, it
We
was
had to
pretty.
give it some leeway.
It was pretty in
Yeah.
my like what came like I do not think looking at it as a 90s anime. Yes, everything aside, I think that it was animated okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It had some really pretty effects with like
Can you imagine if the show was made by like Sunrise? That'd be interesting.
That would be interesting.
Actually, John, how would you feel if tomorrow you found out that Sunrise was doing a remake of Nadesico?
Would
you be excited about it? Okay, cool. That's good to know.
Interesting. I wonder if they would like Brohood or DBZ Kai.
I'd be cautiously hype, actually, because they'd be like, okay, how much of it will change from the whole over-the-top 90s part of it, and how much of it would they stay true?
Yeah.
That's a good thing to think about.
It is.
Because I know that, like, for example, Kino's Journey, for example, it's not super old. But it's getting a remake or a rehash this next coming season. And as soon as I heard about it, it wasn't like I was like, oh no, what are they? I was so hyped. I lost my mind.
Do you know
especially because it was out of nowhere. So I wonder if it would be the same thing for you if Nadesico got a remake.
Initially, I would be really hype, and then the more I think about it, the more I'd be like, wait, but what if they go all super serious with it? Because Gundam, Sunrise are most well known for Gundam when it comes to giant robots, and Gundam is generally speaking not comedy at all. Build Fighters had comedy elements to it, but even that still had a bit more of a serious sports anime tone to it than comedy.
Regardless,
how did you guys feel about the music in the show? Because I'm going to be completely blatant. The only song or anything that I cared about was the ending.
You sang that song.
You didn't like the intro?
I did. I sang the song. No, I know the intro, but I didn't like it.
I love the intro.
And that's okay. I'm just saying, like, me personally, like, I loved the ED. I sang the ED to myself, and when a character sang it in the show,
I
loved that a lot. And I love the crap out of that ending. And I can see why people like the opening. It's pretty hype too. Other than that, like, I can't think of a single track in this show that I can remember.
I like the Keiki Gengar theme.
Admittedly, most of the tracks in the actual series itself was instrumental version of either the intro or ending, depending on what the mood needed. Maybe
that's why I was so, like, I don't remember anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say I didn't notice
There was a few other tracks for when they needed something else, but for the most part, it was either the intro, an instrumental version of the intro, or an instrumental version of the ending, depending on if they wanted a more actiony or more romantic, sentimental moment.
How did you? I was just gonna actually point to you, Cammy, as our as close to a music expert as we can get.
You flatter me.
How did you feel about music in the show?
So yeah,
I think you have more of an ear for it.
Music
honestly.
in the show, honestly, I'm with you. I literally can't remember anything. But then when John said instrumentals of the stuff, I was like, oh wait, okay, I kind of remember that. More than music in this show, I just remember sound effects. There were so many sound effects. But music-wise, the opening is funny to me because it's not a song that, like, gets me really excited or anything. It's not even really one I sing, but I would just, like, go through my day. I'd be doing laundry. I'd be in the kitchen, and the song would get stuck in my head. Yes. Like, it'd just be, you get to burning, da-na-na-na. And I was just like, it just doesn't leave my head, but, like, I'm okay with it being here. It is so weird. It's an earworm, and I respect it for that. And
it's an unoffensive earworm.
Yeah, I enjoy it in the way that I enjoy earworms. The ending is funny because I watched it on YouTube because Nozomi has it uploaded. But in the same case that the Nozomi uploads of Utena didn't have the ending animation, it was just scrolling black text with the ending, so I usually skipped the ending. But then I heard it a couple times, and then as Cassie said, that episode, when a certain character sang it, I was like, this song is beautiful and I love it. And then I listened to it the whole way through the rest of the show. It was just really sweet. I also I liked all the songs in that episode specifically. I actually just really enjoyed getting to watch characters sing. I really liked that episode. Even though
I really liked the other female who sang a song, even though that's probably another song that I didn't think about. But those are like, I feel, the standout parts of music in the show, and then everything else is serviceable to mediocre. I'd agree. Like, I just it was there. It didn't piss me off or go, why my ears, ow. But nothing else really stands out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think back to the sound effects. And to be fair, there were a lot of like good dynamic sound effects. But that's what I think about with the show. I just hear all the like clashes and bangs and explosions and stuff, which were very much in the tradition of 90s fare and were nicely done.
Yep.
So yeah, good on the show for that. Voice acting, anybody? Cassie, I'm turning it back over to you as our resident voice acting expert. What did you think?
How was that delivery?
I feel like with that, it's going to come down to your personal taste. To me, I felt like the Japanese dub was fine. And I especially enjoyed Rudy's VA. I felt that she was very fitting. I also think that all of the characters, when they had to be crazy and over the top, they were crazy and over the top. However, when it gets to the English dub is where we're going to have some very different feelings. Because originally I wanted to watch the English dub because I wanted to get through this show as quickly as possible. Partially because it's a longer show. And partially because, I'm not going to lie, I went into this show with low expectations because I watched it a couple years ago and dropped it. And I felt that the only way I was going to do this show service, a good, not a disservice, is to watch it and get through it as quickly as possible and enjoy it how everybody else does, which is quick, witty humor. And I tried to watch the English dub, I really did, but I feel like it suffers from 90s dubbing.
90s syndrome.
And that some of the characters are fitting, and some of them sound like they're literally standing there reading lines off a script and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And I know it's not just me, because Craig, who watched the dub all the way through, felt the same way.
Yeah, it's a product of its time. It's ADV Films. Some of their actors were much better equipped, and not to diss on them or throw shade, but shout outs to Spike Spencer and Tiffany Grant, and I even thought the voice actress for Yuriko was fine, but when the voice actress for Ruri sounded like she was in her mid-20s, and she ain't no girl, or 10-year-old girl. I was kind of like thrown out of it. She also just
sounded bored, which I know is part of her character, but listen, I've listened to people who have acted, quote-unquote, bored, and sounded more convincing than this chick did.
Yeah.
And she was at the start of every episode, so that didn't help. But, I feel like the main cast, like Akito, because I love Spike Spencer, especially because I love Evangelion and grew up with the Eva dub.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's always going to be a soft spot in my heart for Shinji's voice actor. And Tiffany Grant, I fucking love Asuka. She's, like, one of my favorite female characters in anime, period. And therefore, me being familiar with her voice, anything she does is just, it's going to be perfect to me, even if she sucked. But I didn't have that same feeling for any of the rest of the cast, and while some of them did really good, I feel like some of them suffer from 90s script reading. I don't know how to act. That's just my personal opinion, though, because I know that John personally loved the dub, and that's fine. I know lots of people who did, but I told him, I messaged him, and I was like, I can't watch this dub. It's grating my ears. I can't do it.
I messaged Pete before watching this, and I was like, what should I watch, dub or sub? He's like, either or. I watched the English dub, and then I watched the movie Japanese sub, but then I switched to the English because, going back to our previous topic, you get used to a voice, and then you're just like, nope, I can't transition, so I'm going back to English.
I was able to transition to the Japanese dub, because it was a really good Japanese dub. I also thought it was a good way to actually compare the English and think has much of it been changed because they're changing it to English to be more appeal or hide some of the Japanese from it. But I didn't get a feeling of, oh, that's something that was blatantly changed. Like some things were changed slightly, but that was because there's going to be slight changes in dialogue to match localization.
Yeah, and there's no problem with that. And just to like cut in really fast, like I can give an example of this because Craig was watching it in dub when I was watching it in sub, and every time Izumi would make a pun or a joke,
oh yeah,
sometimes Craig would be like, "Oh my god," and then say what she said out loud, and I'd be like, "Oh really?" Because this is what she said in Japanese, and they were both really bad.
Yeah.
But her character made bad jokes. That was the point. But I just thought it was interesting how they would change.
Yeah, how they
some of the
translate
dialogue.
So they probably did change Izumi's jokes because I honestly cannot remember those from the dub.
Yeah.
But
I found that a lot of her jokes in Japanese were play on words, word puns, and then when Craig would tell me what they were in English, it was normally not necessarily. Sometimes it was a pun, but mostly it was just her saying out something outrageous.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, I'm with.
But yeah, so. But when it came to one particular character, there's only been a few times I remember a few dubs rather that I've come across with this particular voice actor in, and pretty much it's the exact same character each other, but it like really fits, and it's Guy Daidoji's voice actor, and he's a really fitting voice actor for both roles. And if you like Cammy messaged me on the side, and she said how she liked the guy because he was so extra.
Yeah, he's great.
And I feel in the dub he was just a little bit even more extra, to use that kind of phrase.
I mean, he's just extra in general.
To be fair, now I do want to check out the episodes with him for the dub pretty bad. I'll do that on my spare time.
Actually, I think I heard you trying to interject there, Cammy, where you said I agree with.
Yeah, I agree with you. Since I only watched it in sub, I do think that the sub voices were serviceable. It was a little bit, and I don't even know if it was them lacking on dramatic scenes, but again, just like how jarring it was. There was one scene in particular that had a character basically scream a character's name. There's a loss. I'm not going to get into detail, but they did the thing in anime where I like when something bad happens and a character screams a character's name or screams no, and it's piercing, and that actress did that very well, and I appreciate it.
She did.
That was really good.
That actually gave me chills. Yeah, actually. That was beautifully done.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah.
And I actually didn't expect much from that voice actress, to be honest. She didn't do much the rest of the show.
I was going to say.
Other than be serviceable as an actress, and then suddenly there's just this ear, like screech that goes through your entire body, and you're like, damn, girl, you got some pipes on you.
Yeah, that's good she got a moment to shine there. But yeah, I agree with you. On a whole, it was solid on the Japanese side.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the most amazing dub I've ever heard in my life, but it was definitely good, and I think that they did a really good job between, like you said, the dramatic moments that I really wasn't expecting from this show at all, and then the wacky, zany parts, I think, are really where the cast shine. That's where they were supposed to, so good on them for that. I can't really fault them on the voice acting in the Japanese dub at all.
All right.
So, yeah.
Ratings?
Ratings.
Yeah, I suppose there's time to go over the ratings then. So, who should go first?
You get to burning.
Kick it off, John.
No, Cassie,
I really want to. I really want to know. I get it. I really want to know what John says of this show.
How about we all go first, and then he gets to do the final one? I feel like we should do that on the host choice from now on.
Yeah.
Okay. Cass, you go first then.
Okay, fine. I will go first. I unfairly, and I will admit that I unfairly went into Nadesico with very low expectations, mostly because I had failed this show years ago, but John made me watch it knowing that, so I feel like he was expecting that. However, I was pleasantly surprised. I got into the first episode and I messaged him and a couple other people and were like, you know what? I suddenly remember why I dropped this show. Because I didn't hate episode 1, but I was bored. But then I got to episode 2 and 3, and I actually really started to enjoy the cast and the zany humor, as it were.
Yeah.
However, as the show went on, I think the show tried to take itself too seriously, and then not so seriously again. And going and talking to other friends, I found out that most of the time that I had major issues with the show was either 1, when they were referencing another Gundam show, or 2, when they were referencing another giant robo cliche. And when I got out of the show, I basically have said to everybody that Nadesico is 150% a love letter to mech fans. It just is. It's just written in a language that I personally can't understand. I didn't take Mecha 101 before I went into this show, and that's why I can't recommend this as a gateway anime.
No, not really.
I feel, however, so that's why I'm going to recommend that if this is something for you and you like the mecha genre, every person who loves mecha loves this show. Yep. Whether they're viewing it with 90s goggles or not. So if you are a mech fan, I'm going to tell you to check it. However, for me personally, for my personal taste, I'm going to give it a light skip it, because I feel that I could have spent my time really bonding with John on something else. And I feel like this wasn't something that I could really see the merits of. I think there's a lot here, and some of it I can see, but most of it was lost to me, and I felt at the end like I wish I could have gotten some of my time back.
Fair enough. I will admit I was humming and hawing about my host choice pick, and then it got to a point and it was like, no, you need to make a decision.
No, I mean, and it's fine. Honestly, honestly, John, I am grateful to you for recommending this show, because even though I'm recommending people who have similar tastes to me or people who have not seen mech shows to skip it, I don't think this is a bad show, and I think that this is one of the best discussions we've had on the podcast as a whole.
Yeah.
I think if we always recommend shows that are freaking amazing to every genre or to every fan, then we're never going to have conversations like this.
Yeah, you got a point there.
So I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm just giving an honest, critical review. But I do believe that if you are a mech fan, you should check this out. I personally am recommending you skip it if you and me, listener, are very of similar tastes. That's my recommendation. Moving on to the next victim.
The next victim on the chopping block?
Stab, stab, stab.
I guess I can go. So, I've hardly watched any mecha. If you consider Code Geass and Gurren Lagann mecha, then that's and some episodes of Evangelion mecha, then you got my number. I watched a good, I watched the first 8 episodes by myself. I didn't take it too seriously. I found it kind of flawed, because going back to the story, it didn't know what it wanted to be. It had an identity crisis, and some of the characters were serviceable at best. I binged the rest of the show with Cass over the course of 2-3 days, and
that was more fun, arguably, though.
Yeah, it was, because we didn't take it seriously, and we just kind of like riff tracked it the entire time. I like drank a bit while we were just like, pointing it out. Regardless, I'm with in the camp that Cass is by saying I am glad I watched it, but honestly, I would say if you're not diehard into this, or if you're not able to get the homage or the reference or anything like that, hell, even my friend, shoutouts to Zach, rated this a 6 out of 10. He said it does not hold up. It does not hold water. So I would say skip this show.
But if you're going to check it with a friend, because that makes it more fun if you don't understand what's going on.
There are far better mecha shows to at least check out / like, in my opinion. But that's just me.
Actually, I wonder if we went and watched a bunch of mech shows, if we could go back and watch this and
I
appreciate it more.
have all them. There's a whole bunch of Gundam, UC, and AU out there. Just saying. Get a Robo is another one. Gunbuster.
I need to watch Gunbuster.
Me too.
Okay. I will slide on over to the review portion. And there's a couple perspectives I think I take with this review. One of them is considering that the audience that we are recommending to are going to be casual watchers who have the freedom, more so than we do, to say, if you're going to give a show a shot, you can stop it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess for me, I honestly really enjoyed the first half of this show. It definitely started to be a slog through once we get to the second half, and things just get so convoluted.
Yeah.
And so then I might be second half, I'm definitely skip it. I'm gonna give it a solid check it, again considering that if our viewers are not getting into the dramatic stuff, they can watch the first 10 episodes and quit. Stick around for the good stuff. And I do think that what was good. I have only seen 2 mech shows at this point, and the other ones being Neon Genesis Evangelion. Something I enjoy about both of these shows is that in the midst of this ocean of mecha shows that have a lot of traditions and ways that they are done, Evangelion and Nadeshiko are really unique, I'd feel.
Yeah.
Especially just in between a lot of Gundams. And I guess I did glance at Macross Frontier, but Macross Frontier even kind of bored me because it's very generic. And Evangelion and Nadeshiko are not generic. Nadeshiko, you are going in for a unique adventure. Whether that is going to process with you well or not, I think it's kind of cool in its uniqueness. And so there, I definitely say give it a shot. And you may like it, you may like the whole thing, you may like to look at it for a piece of time and back away from it. But yeah, that's probably what I'd give it. I appreciated the differences and uniqueness that it had.
Yeah.
I can agree with that, actually.
Yeah. I will agree with that stance. It is different. It's just, for me, it felt like it tried to, go back and forth between what it wanted to be and tail. At one point it is man, we're episodic and we're trying to solve this thing and the war's in the background, but then it leaned so hard into one direction and I'm like, you lost me. And
that's fine.
Yeah.
And to us that wasn't necessarily forgivable, but to Cammie, she has a good point that can be forgiven sometimes for a casual viewer, especially one who can, if they don't like it, turn it off.
Yes.
So I think that we're all saying the same thing, but we're just rating it separately based on saying the same thing, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yep. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Some people also really like the dissonance. Shout out to anybody that watches Arcada or Glass Reflection reviews. He did give a Nadeshiko review. And
he did, and I watched it.
Yeah, and he likes that. He likes that dissonance he mentioned. So for some people, it resonates. But yeah, just for us, I guess it was a bit more of a struggle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's to show that some anime reviewers,
critics,
really enjoy it. And honestly, I believe that one of the things that he mentioned was that this could be something that, somebody who's not familiar with mechs could enjoy. And I disagree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that opinion is there.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
there you go.
Take it as you will. All right, John, Monsieur Host. Now you totally get the full floor and podium.
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, one of the reasons why I brought this up for host choice in the first place was because I thought it was a series that even if you wasn't a huge mech fan, you probably will still find something to enjoy in the series. So yeah, I did recommend it to Cassie, knowing that she's not exactly a mech fan, although she does have some giant robot series that she's seen and really enjoyed. I know that's not really a go-to genre for her, unlike myself. But yeah, on going back to the subject earlier, I guess I did have a lot of nostalgia goggles view of this series, and I still do, I guess. So I personally can't say any less than really like this series. But yeah, unless you, I guess it really does show, unless you are a really big mech series fan, you're probably not going to enjoy this as much as others might who are big mech fans. So,
But okay, here's my question then. Since you are you able to see past the rose-tinted glasses that is nostalgia and realize, like, this story does have some inconsistencies despite it being...
I think he's admitted that already.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will, especially rewatching it now, because it has been a while since I last watched it.
Right.
Before now, and so rewatching it, there was stuff that I completely missed on or forgot about, and yeah, there are problems with the story, with the execution. There are moments where it was kind of jarring, like where, as mentioned, Eureka had to make this really big decision, and for the last bit of that episode, it looked like it really impacted her, and then the next episode, it's suddenly all happy-go-lucky again, and it's just like, I remember taking it as she's doing her best to try and just move on and lighten the mood, but at the same time, it's like, it just won't necessarily be taken that way by everyone else. And I can sit here giving my interpretation of all these slightly off decisions that they make, but that doesn't mean that everyone's going to see it that way, or that it's necessarily going to be true. These are just like my headcanons of why it was like that, and probably me justifying it to myself more than anyone else. So
what was your final rating? A like it?
I could see that.
Yeah, I'll give it a like it, because
I couldn't tell, because I heard you say, I really like this show, and I'm like, is that your rating? I don't know. What is your rating?
Yeah.
Do you love the show? Do you like the show? Do you check the show?
John, you are allowed to love this show also.
You are allowed to love this show, by the way.
I will judge you if you love this show.
There's part of me that does want to give this show a love it, but like the rewatch, there's just like, I can't overlook some of the stuff that's scenes, but that I still really, really like this show. So
okay, I like it.
That's
nice.
So yeah.
Do you want to wrap us up before we get into I'm assuming short spoiler review, because we've been here for a while, but
yeah. So yeah, that has been our review of Martian Successor Nadesico. If you agree with us, let us know. If you don't agree with us, also feel free to let us know. Is there any other series that you think we should check out? Feel free to give us a shout out. We are willing to look into older series.
Heck yes.
As demonstrated.
We're willing to look into any dark corner. We have flashlights.
We're brave like that.
If you don't want to be spoiled, get out now.
Bye.
Peace.
All right, let's sit into our comfy, non-existent chairs and discuss spoilers.
I have one piece of dirty laundry that I must air out.
Whoa!
Actually, two pieces of dirty laundry.
Is one of them a sock and one of them a pair of underwear? Because I'll be so happy.
Well, I do have.
I want it specifically to be a sock, and unmatching underwear.
All right, now let me see if I can grab the. I do have a pair. I do have my dirty laundry.
You don't actually have to get the physical articles.
I am committing to the bit. I'm committing to my grievances with this show are they killed off two of the best characters in the entire goddamn show.
Yes.
Let's be honest, they killed off the same character twice.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. The second character was the clone of the first character, not an actual clone, but
still, that sucks though, because they were like, "Hey, remember when you liked this guy and we killed him in episode 3? We're gonna do that again."
Yeah, except now we're also going to add a happy relationship where he fucking proposes and then literally dies, and it hurt.
Right after his sister says, "I'm not gonna make fun of you anymore," holding his little robot.
You know, it was sad too because it was complete red herring, and it's just like, oh, this is fucking.
Also, I called it. I called it from a mile away too.
Death flags out the wazoo, and he got shot by his best friend, and I'm like, yeah, well, that's fucking shit. He's a fucking martyr. And kudos, the plot actually got half decent at the end there, and then it kind of.
Me and Craig were watching this together, and I think I literally said these words. I have watched enough mecha shows to know how big of a death flag this is.
Remember when we thought that the mechanic was gonna die too?
Yeah, but that's because he had a heart-to-heart with
I could see that.
Hikaru, and I was like, oh, they're actually having a sentimental moment. Nothing good happens in this show when you have a sentimental moment with someone.
I loved their heart-to-heart a lot.
The mechanic, and I believe her name was Hikaru. Yeah, that was fantastic, especially because he obviously had feelings for her some way.
Yeah.
And she, turned him down in a very realistic way.
Yeah, she was just
and I enjoyed that.
She was just like, can we not let this get in the way of the fun that we have, just being together as, people that enjoy the same hobbies. It doesn't have to be love or a relationship. And then she kind of brought in her own experience. I think it was with an ex-boyfriend. It was just, it was really nice.
I enjoyed that. That was the closest thing to a real romantic moment that I actually felt was genuine in that show. Minus the other moment when someone's bleeding out on the floor.
Yeah.
I really hoped they'd go back to it because it was good, but they didn't, which, I'm okay with. But again, I think just because I was so interested in it, I was like, let's get more of those characters. But nah. Nah.
I did also not like how he became a martyr for the Jovians, and then that entire that whole section was just very strange to me. The whole.
It reminded me of Elden Noah Zero's beginning.
I don't even know where to start. Why Akito was so pissy towards people who essentially were in the same situation as him, where people that he loved were annihilated because of a war. And he's like, I fucking hate you. Okay, why?
Yeah.
Why? That was such forced tension.
You're talking about his...
Why?
Are you talking about his hate for the Admiral?
Not his hate for the Admiral, that too.
That was what I was talking about.
But no, Yeah, that was very strange. And also, can we talk about how the fact that the Admiral just comes back at the end because why not?
Deus Ex Machina, dog. Come on. Remember the ending?
I was in a bunker and wasn't able to come out until right this moment to deliver the V pose to you. I'm not actually offering anything of use. I'm just still here, by the way.
Yeah.
That was not necessary at all.
He was stuck on Mars, and that was when they finally got back to Mars after teleporting away from Mars.
Oh yeah, it's just the way that he apparently survived.
Yeah,
I get that.
And he didn't contribute anything after he came back. So it's just like, why did you come back? It doesn't
Also, there was this whole big build-up with... we're jumping around a lot, but there was this whole... What was the name of the guy who was shot? The murder towards the end. What was his name? I can't remember.
Fuck if I remember.
Daigai Goji 2?
Yeah, we'll just say Guy 2.0.
No, he had a name. Ken. Yep. Okay, so his best friend shoots him.
Ken. What was it? That was the Gekigang character.
Oh, it was the Gekigang.
Whichever.
Where was it?
I don't remember. But anyway, he gets shot by his friend. There's this whole build-up with him, tearing up his picture. And, they tried to make this, really forced tension. And then by the end, it's where was this build-up going? Because the ending to me was the most big slap in the face to the viewer I've ever seen.
The whole entire ending of the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we could resolve this, but we choose not to because we want to keep our memories of this ship, even though we could save hundreds of thousands of lives.
For science and time travel!
And then we're not really going to actually give anybody any resolution. We're just going to angrily stare at each other. And the reason why everybody's not going to fire at each other, even though they were in the middle of a gigantic fight, was two people bickering in a mech, and somehow that inspires everybody to go, oh, you. Including the guy who just shot his friend in the stomach. I don't know. That entire ending bothered the shit out of me. I don't know how anybody else felt about it.
That was his name.
How did you guys feel about the ending?
Science!
Yeah, I was still a little bit lost, especially when we get this ham-fisted reveal that the professor was the girl, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, sure. The little girl Ai-chan.
Yeah.
I pointed out, when I was watching this with Cass, I pointed out, I was like, if your past self and your future self meet and you're cognizant that it is your past self, then that creates a time-space anomaly, and that can tear a paradox in space-time, but okay. Well, she did technically vanish from that timeline, so either way...
Yeah, and then she was found in the desert, apparently.
Yep.
And,
I also lost memories of the meeting, which is part of how they explain away that paradox.
It's not well done, though. And that whole science-y bullshit at the end was not necessary anyway. Like, as soon as they started putting in, was it bosom jumping?
Bosom jump.
Yeah, like, that was not necessary. It was just added there to, I don't know, add a sci-fi element, and all it did was confuse the viewer.
And apparently the only people that can do it are the people on Mars, so Akito, Dr. Versange, and Eureka can do it. No one else can?
Yeah, but they also have to be in a specific state to be able to do it, and
I honestly
for some reason it had to do with the ruins, but if they destroy the ruins, everything will be
rewritten,
reset, but we don't want to do that.
Like, while it would have still left some stuff up in the air, I actually think a better episode to end it on could have been that one where they all like went their separate ways and stuff and were trying to get back to their own lives, and then they like got back in the Nadeshiko and got back together. Like, to me, it could have just ended there. And then they're like, yeah, and we continue doing shit.
I would have been so okay with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
That would have been nice.
I would have been so okay with that.
That's like episode 22 or whatever, when they get their ship back from the military.
Yeah. Because I don't know. I think for me, again, it's... sorry, John, 1 second, and then I'll give you space a second. I think for me, again, the reason that would have been a little better is kind of like how Evangelion's ending the original series focuses so much more on the characters' like mindset than closing up the entire world thing. To me, it's about the ragtag motley crew of the Nadeshiko, and that is just a part of the Nadeshiko. And so, yeah, having a way to kind of reinforce that and close that out would have been a really solid way to end it. So, yes. Yes, John.
I can see that. This is something I completely forgot to mention during the actual review, is that we're not talking about the movie, and I think part of the problem with Nadeshiko is that the story did actually continue past where the series left off.
It continued into a video game, which continued into the movie.
And that's one of the reasons why I said we can't really we could watch the movie, but we're not going to for the point of the review, is because
I heard it's
there's a big
garbage.
I still really enjoy it, but I will admit that it's bad.
Yeah, almost everybody I know is like, please don't watch the movie. Please don't watch the movie. Do not watch it takes away everything good about this show.
Shout outs to Zach and Pete.
Okay. And also Arcata. And almost every other review I've watched of Nadeshiko, there is not one person... Because I did go and watch a few reviews.
Yeah.
And not one person recommends the movie. So you know what? I'm going to trust those people. Because even if the people who are saying, this show is fantastic, are saying, don't watch the movie, I'm going to trust them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the movie is set canonically after a video game that never got released outside of Japan. And there is a big chunk of story missing there. And a lot of the characters that do return are very different as a result. And it's just like, Why are you so different? What did we miss? We missed a lot, apparently. Yeah.
Shoutouts to
Anywho,
shoutouts to Ruri for having the best backstory or the most
It's
developed.
true.
Yeah,
She actually
was-
had a backstory. I also
that was
kind of
good
liked
episode.
that it turned out she wasn't a robot. She was a test tube baby.
Yeah,
I honestly thought she
I
was
agree.
a robot,
I
but
agree.
you know what? I'm glad I was proven wrong.
Yeah, the reason why she was on the Nadeshiko is because she was,
Engineered.
she had like, she was the test tube baby and she had biological engineering on her. She had a similar sort of implant in her to what Akito and the other pilots had, but hers was different in order to specifically interact with
Machines.
With
Computers.
machines or
Sorry.
in more or Omoikane in particular.
Yep.
I also think one of the most impacting moments in that show for me was when she was talking to her quote unquote foster father, who wasn't really her father, and he showed the video of her quote unquote mom
oh
and
my
dad,
God.
Yeah.
and
That
she
so
was
good.
just like. And she was just like, "Thank you for raising me," but then walked over and slapped him across the face.
You can have your fucking money. I'm out.
Yeah, that was
That was
good.
really good.
I think Ruri
Mhm.
is like, I think there's a reason why a lot of us say that she's one of the best characters in the show, and I think that's because partially she got the most growth.
Yep.
She taught
Wow.
me my first Japanese word, which was
Baka.
baka.
Yep.
Good, it was her first word too, or one of them.
hmm
Yep.
Yeah.
She always says you're idiots.
I also really liked that they could have gone very easily into also forcing like really hardcore Ruri as like a side part of like also having a crush on Akito, but like for the most
I
part they're
honestly-
very subtle and it's like
Yeah.
not even completely sure, you know? Like
I honestly thought that she was going to join the
Miss
harem,
Cassie!
but
I just remembered something, and it was one of the other best parts of the entire show, and that's because two best girls were sitting next to each other, and they both called everybody idiots.
Yes.
I
Yeah,
just
that
love
was-
when she went to call everybody idiots, and then the little sister was just like, God, these people are such fucking idiots. And she just was like, oh.
I like you.
Yeah, I want them. I want more of them being small girl best friends. I ship them as friends.
I also took that as a bit of like, bitch stole my line.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Stole my
That was
line.
great. That bit was really great, and I also loved everything with the little sister. Just throwing that out there, she was also the one that did that whole "Be my groom" line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler wise, I can't think of too much else. I mean,
No.
I feel like there were other big. Okay, spoiler: Jovians are people too.
From
I
Jupiter.
mean, was that really that surprising?
Yeah, exactly.
No, I may have missed the part where how they got separated into out in Jupiter and why they love Geki Gengar so much. But
Propaganda, I guess.
okay, yeah.
Hmm.
I also
they
interpreted it.
used it as a propaganda to help raise everyone because it was
Morale.
about the only series that they took with them, apparently. Not a complete copy of it, mine. They were missing a few episodes, apparently.
Ah,
Something like that.
I think they were also trying to do something very intricate with the end of the show. And I see a lot of people say this, and that's why I'm going to say that it's a pretty common opinion that this show is super hashtag deep because there's a message that not everything that you love is really something that you should look up to.
Yeah.
And that
Yep.
reality is so much crueler than fiction.
oh yeah.
And that's why this entire race of people, essentially, or entire group of refugees, took solace in it, but it came to shoot a bunch of them in the face.
Yep.
One big section that stood out to me is when a guy who I can't remember his name who got shot leaves, and his best buddy is just like, isn't this the kind of woman we're supposed to idolize? And he's just like, yeah, but she's
Not
not
real.
real.
Yeah.
I remember something I was going to say real quick.
I don't think it was executed entirely well, but I think that's why it was there.
There was actually a few moments where Akito, or Guy and Akito in particular, or pretty much all of them involved Akito, actually. Like, I had connections with him as an anime fan. Like, there was, like, sure, it's old and predictable, but you can also just enjoy it for what it is. What was another? The moment when he was building the little model with the mechanic, and the mechanic pointed out he never actually, like, he'd painted Guy, or he painted Gay on the shoulders.
That, yes. That was rando.
And he meant to, like, that was like Japan not realizing how that would not be read in English.
By the way, just to clarify, the guy we keep referring to as Gaia 2.0 is Tsukumo Shiratori.
Yeah, John keeps telling me and I keep forgetting.
That's all good.
But anyway, John, I know what point you're getting to, and you should probably get to it, so we won't interrupt you.
And then the mechanic points out, like, he never had his name written on the shoulders, and said, like, sometimes your memories actually, you try to remember something, you think you got it clear in your head, and it's actually wrong. And then lastly, there was the whole complete different way of looking at the Gekiganga series that got made apparent, like this is how we, like, the one true justice will prevail, and it's like, yeah, that sounds like a really good message, but then they took it as, and ours is the one true justice, and like, no, that's not the message we thought we was all uniting under. That's complete opposite. And like, just how your own, I suppose, nostalgia goggles might blur your own sights of the series.
And I think that that's really a good message to leave off on, actually.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't see with 20/20 vision.
No.
Baka.
And at the end of the day, it's just a cartoon, guys.
Is it, though?
It's more than a cartoon.
Is it?
It's Geki Gengar. It's live!
But yeah, regardless of whether I really enjoyed this show or not, I think you made a good choice, John. Just to inspire conversation.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. And I look forward to our next host choice, and hopefully we can have some good discussion. Because I think that's what's great about these host choice. Because I feel like these host choice really do offer discussion, whether we all love it or not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right,
that's great.
So, without further ado, that is all we have time for tonight. So, bye-bye, everyone.
Peace out, y'all.
Baka.
Oh,